This is Animus on. I'm After Nothing. Today I am joined by the f***ing greatest f***ing AC YouTuber podcaster, Loomer. How you doing, Loomer?
Hi. I'm doing pretty well, thanks.
It's good to have you here, Loomer.
Thanks for the intro.
Actually, I forgot to check when you've last been on, but I think you've been on 3 times or 2 times before?
I think this might be my third time
This is your third, okay.
on. It was probably like a month or two ago I was last on.
Yeah. And the one before that was just titled Loomer, so you can find that one easy.
Mm-hmm.
And that one, I think we discussed India. So it's probably called India.
Yes, Chronicles India. So yeah, that was like a couple weeks into January then probably.
So we have quite the episode lined up. A few different news pieces, a few different things about what Loomer's doing at the moment. Before we get into that, I just want to say a massive thanks to a good friend of mine, Tyrol, who has redone all the art for the podcast. It looks amazing. He's Tyrol9 on Reddit and AC_Tyrol on Twitter, so make sure you go send him some thanks. If you need anything done for graphic design or anything like that, then you can always contact him. He's always available, and he's great to work with. Last week, you went somewhere special and you did something special.
Oh, yeah.
What did you do last weekend?
Well, it's not really Assassin's Creed related, but it kind of is. But I went to MAGFest, which is, I believe it stands for Music and Games Festival, which is kind of in the Washington, D.C. area. And the reason I went there is because I helped kickstart Austin Wintory's Journey Live project, which is Austin working with... they're called the Fifth Estate, I believe. Oh God, I hope I got that right. They're a Chicago ensemble, basically. Let me look that up real quick. I might be thinking of the movie, the WikiLeaks movie.
Yep.
Oh crap! Okay, I probably got the name wrong, but it was Fifth Housen's. Okay, Fifth Housen's ensemble. Anyway. So, and the idea is basically that they play the soundtrack to Journey as various players are playing through it. So it's a very dynamic, performance, and it's just really cool. And Journey has been one of my favorite games ever. And Austin is an amazing composer I have a lot of respect for. So I helped kickstart that and went to MAGFest to go check it out. It was the premiere performance, and you can check my Twitter for some pictures and stuff. It didn't take too many, but it was really, really amazing and very unique. And as far as I can tell, they didn't make any mistakes or anything. It was really cool.
Now, I'm a little ashamed to admit that I haven't played Journey just yet. I'm planning on it soon. But I know that Journey is legendary for its amazing soundtrack and just the emotional power of it. Yeah. So did any of that translate into the live performance?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just really, really amazing. And, that soundtrack is the main reason why so many people were excited when Austin was announced as the composer for Syndicate. It's just really emotional, and it translates really well live, and they had a singer at the very end because there are lyrics at the for the final song that plays over the credits. The nice thing about the game is that you can play it in 1 to 2 hours, so it actually fits well for a concert type performance. And the vocals were just very powerful live. It's just really a unique experience. They're taking it to a couple other cities, so if it's stopping by near you should check it out. It's I mean you and the general audience, maybe not you specifically, because I don't think they're going to Arizona, but they're going to New York, and they're looking at some other cities, and they'll be in Chicago, I think, which is where Fifth Ensemble is based. And yeah, it was just a really, really cool experience.
Did you see anything else at MAGFest, or was that just the main thing that you went to there to see?
They had a really probably the single most impressive arcade setup that I've ever seen. Hundreds and hundreds of arcade machines, of almost pretty much every game you could think of, and
oh, wow.
It was all free to play, and free play. Jesus, stupid modern terms, getting in my old school terms. I mean, I guess literally it's also free to play, but Yeah, it was really cool, and they had some of the more obscure like Japanese games, like lots of random Japanese rhythm games that weren't ever really released over here. It was really impressive, but there were always people occupying like the most interesting ones. So Candace and I just basically took a tour around all the entire thing, and it was quite a walk. Because they had hundreds of machines and probably at least like 60 or 70 pinball machines alone. And so we just like walked around the entire thing, and they're like, okay, we're old. Let's go somewhere else. And so instead I went over to table flipping for charity, which is probably the single greatest idea I've ever heard of, which is where you donate some money to charity, they load up a table with random shit, and then you flip it.
Oh, brilliant.
That was fun. That was a highlight. I don't know. They had some other stuff. We saw some films. There was one that was called GTFO. It was about women in gaming communities and the gaming industry. We saw a panel for Ashley and Anthony Birch. Candace is a big fan. And then we, as part of the Kickstarter stuff, we also went and had dinner with Austin and the Fifth Ensemble performers, and afterwards, and that was really cool. So we were all just like chatting about stuff. So it was really cool.
Nice. Now, before we get into the Assassin's Creed, I wanted to just talk a little bit about what you are live streaming at the moment. So right now, one of the things you are playing through is Prince of Persia: Sands of Time on stream.
Oh, yeah.
How's that going?
Oh, it's bittersweet because it's one of my favorite games ever, and I've been wanting to stream this forever because it's such this is the game that the Assassin's Creed team made before Assassin's Creed, right? Mm-hmm. And you can see there's so many cool things that you can see in it if you try to connect the two series. And it's I played it when it came out. I played it on my GameCube like in 2003 or 4, and it was like one of my favorite games of all time. It still is. Is a little bittersweet because I'm playing the PS3 HD port, and like the audio is just completely like messed up. And if you go to like Amazon or anything, you'll see like this is in the reviews, but it's like the voices always echo as in if they're indoors, even if they're outdoors. The audio balance is just way off. Like things that you think would come up like really quickly in a playthrough, and it's kind of like, to me, just completely insane that they have not patched this. Like, this should be the definitive, like, version of one of their classic, like, series. And it blows my mind. It's really weird that I don't know. I think it must have been at a time where they didn't, like, give a shit about stuff, because I feel like now they would patch something like this pretty quickly. But because this was released like a few years ago in PS3, they just kind of left it in this busted state, and it's really frustrating. But I mean, the gameplay and everything still holds up, and it's still wonderful. So we're going to finish that tomorrow, and then eventually go through Warrior Within, Two Thrones, and Forgotten Sands. None of which I played, actually. I couldn't get past the first little bit of Warrior Within when I tried it. It was just too angsty for me. I think it wasn't what I loved about the Prince and Sands of Time, but we'll see. I think I'm in a better place to just look at it with amusement.
Yeah. You're also playing through Watch Dogs, and it's your first time playing through the game. What's up with that? What?
I've had it since launch, and I've been like really excited for this game ever since it was announced. Like I was there at E3 front row, like when they announced it, and and I just completely dropped off in my backlog, and so I'm so excited to finally be playing through it. It's
what do you think of it so far?
I really like it. I like it a lot, and I don't know, I know it's gotten like a little bit of backlash ever since it came out, especially like compared to E3 and everything, but I'd seen enough gameplay trailers closer to launch and read the reactions that I pretty much knew how the game worked, kind of like what it looked like, what to expect. I don't know if my expectations were lowered that much, but like, I've been really enjoying it. I think there's a lot of interesting things too if you start to compare it to Assassin's Creed. Like, I've really been enjoying the hacking multiplayer, where you go in and try to invade someone else's game and try to hack them without getting detected, because it actually, I wasn't expecting it. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Assassin's Creed multiplayer, because you're kind of trying to be an NPC in a way and not be suspicious. But I mean, there are things that make it not as deep and not quite the same, but there's kind of like a similar concept at the base of it that I've really enjoyed. And then what I found really funny is in the main game, it kind of bombards you with all these like, things to do and everything. And it reminds me a lot of Unity, which came out in the same year, right?
Yeah.
And Unity got a lot of flack, and I hated when Unity was always popping up like for you to do, or like, hey, you have unspent sync points or whatever. But I like in Watch Dogs, it almost like I kind of like it, because it almost kind of fits in the theme of the game, where it's like all about technology, and like we're living in this connected world where you're just being constantly bombarded with notifications about random shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like in a weird way, I kind of almost like that in Watch Dogs, whereas I really hated it in Unity.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. Overall, I think it's a great game so far. I think the story is often cited as one of the like bad things about it. I think it's been okay so far. But we'll see. I mean, I'm only past Act 1 out of 5 acts, so I'm probably like a third of the way through, and we'll see where it goes. But so far, I'm really enjoying it.
Cool. When do you stream that?
Oh, I stream that on Mondays at 8 p.m. Pacific.
All right. Yeah. Now, another thing you streamed this week was Far Cry Primal. Oh, and happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that just happened to come out on my birthday, so I was like, oh, I'll do a birthday stream because I love Far Cry.
So what do you think of that so far?
It's a little tough for me to... I've literally only played the first 2 hours of Far Cry Primal, so it's tough for me to make a really solid evaluation. What I played so far is strikingly similar to Far Cry 3 and 4. Like, almost... like, very, very little is different. And I get the impression that I'm pretty much right at the point where I've gotten my first creature, I've gotten my owl, and I think from there it starts to branch out a little more, like into its own thing once you start taming all the beasts and everything. I know that's a big part of it. So right now it leaves me wanting a more, a different experience, a little more unique experience. But we'll see how that goes further down the line.
I haven't checked Far Cry Primal out just yet. I was thinking maybe checking it out over spring break when I don't have as much schoolwork. But yeah, I've heard very positive things, actually, which I was surprised about from the marketing. Marketing didn't quite convey that to me. But people have, from what I've heard, have been really enjoying it.
Yeah, I think the idea is solid. It's more about like the execution, I think. And I saw at least one article the other day that I didn't read through it, but the headline was like, Far Cry Primal would be better if it weren't a Far Cry game. And I kind of already had like a little bit of sense of that, but we'll see how it goes further down. Like, if you really commit to like this different gameplay and environment, you can really start shedding off some of the, what's the word? Like legacy aspects of the series. But it's still, I still like that it's different. I would like to see Assassin's Creed have kind of more almost, because this almost feels like a spin-off Far Cry, Some people have kind of referred to it that way. I would like to see Assassin's Creed do kind of more spin-off type things where you just go to I don't know, like it's just a really different environment. Assassin's Creed 4 was kind of like that, but I guess I would think more of like, the two extremes of the time periods. Either you go all the way back to the Isu era and have that precursor game that Sean teased us in AC3, or you go do a full like modern day AC. I think both of those would be really cool. I would love to see those. So Far Cry Primal kind of makes me I'm always kind of thinking of things in terms of Assassin's Creed, especially when it's a Ubisoft open world game, and so I was kind of thinking about that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Speaking of Ubisoft open world games, epic segue. Yeah. You also played the Division beta this week. I think it was this week. Yes. I think it was last week. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, so the Division falls into a bucket with Destiny, where it's not. It's just not my type of gameplay. There's too many MMO elements for me. And so I spent like a lot of years playing World of Warcraft from the beta to the first expansion, and it was a really cool experience, but I like got really sucked into it. And by the end, I was just grinding, raids for gear that increased my stats by like 1% or whatever. And at that point, you're just like, oh my God, like it's too much. Like I want to go back to really satisfying like narrative experiences and everything. So I am pretty much done with anything that resembles an MMO, and that includes The Division. But I played it. It's a little weird, as some people have noted, to have a Tom Clancy game where they take like 6 headshots before they die sometimes, like depending on your gun and everything. Because Tom Clancy usually denotes a little bit of like, it's kind of like this is a realistic, like kind of almost military type thing. But the environments were really beautiful. The gameplay could be fun, I think, for people who are into that stuff. But I think the point I checked out of it was when I picked up a scope that added plus 2.5% zoom to like my pistol. Yeah. And so like you zoom in and it's just like a tiny bit of the screen gets a little bit bigger, and I'm like, okay. And then later on I picked up a pistol that was plus 3% zoom, and I was like, okay, fuck it, I'm done. Like my brain was like, that's it, I'm out of here. It was just ridiculous. And I'm like, I see exactly where this is going, and I don't like it. A big part of it is also the Dark Zone PvP. I played around with it. I was kind of addicted to some people and would like shoot them for their loot and everything, but it's not my kind of experience. Hopefully it does well. I don't think it's necessarily a bad game. It's just not for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I don't think I'll be getting it personally. It just it seems like a solid game. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
So now let's get into the actual news that somehow relates to Assassin's Creed in some way. I don't know if you heard about this one, but it's one of the strangest things I've ever seen happen. This week, the Assassin's Creed subreddit was raided by communists. Did you see this?
What? No, I didn't see that.
Basically, someone made a post on the subreddit about Karl Marx. We've talked about Marx before. And then someone posted that on the subreddit, on the leftist subreddit, Full Communism. And basically, we got, like, brigaded by a whole bunch of communists. And I think this is the only subreddit thread that we've ever had to actually, like, lock. So no one could comment on it. You couldn't upvote, downvote stuff.
Oh, my God.
And Fred basically had to go in there and basically just, like, burn the whole place down to try and get out all the crap.
Just nuke it from orbit.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a little odd. I'll have a link to that thread in the description. And I'll send you a link to that in a second. But, yeah. So that was very strange.
Wait, well, what was the issue? Were they just being like, you guys don't know Karl Marx like we do or something?
Yes.
Okay.
So this thread was comparing Ubisoft's version of Karl Marx versus the real Karl Marx. And they were saying that Ubisoft Karl Marx is much more forgiving of his opinions. And the real Karl Marx was actually quite a bit more of like a revolutionary overlord, warlord guy. And I guess the communists disagreed with this. And, everyone came in and like, there was this one guy who basically just said, wow, real Marx sounds like a dick, and then it kind of spiraled off from there, and,
Okay.
It was a bit of a shit show, really.
I saw the thread. I saw the thread title. I didn't dig into it at the time. Maybe I should have. That sounds hilarious.
Yeah, it's a little bit crazy.
Okay.
And last time you were on, we talked about Chronicles India. And the time before that, we talked about Chronicles China. Now, I'm going to spare the viewers, and we're not going to talk about Chronicles Russia this week. Because you've expressed your opinions, and I agree with most of your opinions completely, in your live streams.
My live playthrough. I should note that if you go back and look at the live playthrough, and I mentioned this like in the third final part of it, like I was also just having like a really bad week at work, so I was a little bit more angry, I think, than usual. But I think like the basic things I was angry about are still points that anyway.
So you can go watch that. All of the playthroughs are saved on Loomer's channel, all 3 archives. So you can go watch him play Chronicles Russia and discover why Russia ended up being the worst Chronicles game and China ended up, funnily enough, being one of the best. turns out.
Yeah, at least for me. I've seen some people who are like, I like Russia the most, and I'm just like, eh.
Like, they like it for the... I've noticed from what... I've talked to a few people like that, and from what I've seen, they really like it for the story, because the narrative is probably the most complex out of all three.
Yeah, like the characters actually have some semblance of like motivation and personality. Like it's still not anywhere near the regular games or anything, but they're not just cardboard cutouts of a generic person.
Yeah. Except that with Russia, the gameplay I found was way more frustrating, and it felt way less solid, and
it was very sloppy. Lots like it's the only one I think that I would say needs a patch. Like it's like typos, frame rate issues, bugs.
Yeah,
way more than the other ones. Is weird.
Very strange.
But yeah, and then the story also gives the box another totally random power that made me just like Anyway.
Yeah, let's not talk about the box.
Yeah, we want to talk about the box. Hopefully, we never hear about it again.
And other things you have done since you were last on, you interviewed both Victoria Atkin and Paul Amos for Assassin's Den. How did those go?
Good. We interviewed Victoria by the last time I was on, I think.
Really?
If I remember right. Maybe not. Actually, you know what? I think it hadn't come out yet. I think I had recorded it, but it hadn't come out.
Yes.
So both of those were great. Unfortunately, Victoria's time was a little limited, so the one with Paul is more like what I usually like to have with the voice actors. That one's like twice as long as Victoria's. We're able to really kind of dig in depth into a lot of like subjects. We didn't really, unfortunately, have quite the opportunity to do that with Victoria. But yeah, I think if you listen to both of them, it's funny how similar they are. I think.
Yeah.
Where you have Victoria being like a little bit more reserved and like cautious. Like there was at one point someone wanted her to say, "Who's a good horse you are?" And she was like, you know what? I'm gonna have to decline that because I know that's just gonna be used on the internet somewhere. And I'm like, out of all the things we've asked people to say like on this podcast, that's like not even close to like the weirdest one.
Yeah.
And looking back, I don't know if maybe she didn't realize that was Paul's line that about horses. Maybe she just thought some fan was randomly asking her to talk about horses because she's so angry at them. I don't know. Like, and then you go to Paul's episode, and I'm just like, oh, what's this question about the Dirty Ass Creed's secrets Tumblr? And he's like, oh, let's just dive right into it. And like without any prompt whatsoever, he just starts reading like someone's Jacob Fry erotica. Basically, and it's so funny because that's exactly like how they are in the games. Like Evie's a little more like cautious and reserved, and Paul just like, Paul, like Paul basically is Jacob, right? So it's like confusing for me to mix them up. And Jacob's just like, let's just dive right in and do whatever, go crazy.
Two things. You actually mentioned it just there. The Dirty Ass Creed Secrets Tumblr. I listened to that episode with your episode with Paul Amos today, and I then checked out the link in the description, and I was a little bit shocked to see some of the content that was on there. I was not prepared. I think you should have added like a warning on there or something, just like brace yourself.
Well, yeah, I guess so, probably. But like you in the podcast itself, you hear my like. I see it for the first time. You hear my reaction. I'm like, oh. It's hilarious and wonderful. And I'm trying not to. I don't want to make it seem like I have any negative like feelings towards them or whatever. I think it's hilarious and awesome, and I'm really happy that like Paul. I saw some of the reactions after Paul read the confession on there. People were freaking out, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, like, and they put so much detail into that Tumblr too. Like, there's central music from the Assassin's Creed games playing from like
yeah from
the like, brothels and stuff. It's great.
Yeah, it's like here's some background music while you listen to these. It's really well done for what it is, and I think that's great. I think in the past, like years and years ago, when we first hear about some of this stuff on Tumblr, I'm always like, I don't know. But like, I think these days now, I'm more like, it's go for it.
And so the other part I wanted to talk about also relates to Tumblr, funnily enough. But you guys discussed quite in depth Jacob's sexuality, and then just a few days after that, because you guys basically left on the idea that it's not straightforward, it's not one or the other. Jacob doesn't just like fit into a specific category for human beings, basically, at least in Syndicate's story. Well, then just a few days later, the Assassin's Creed Tumblr said that Jacob is in fact bisexual, and this is canon. The end.
Yep.
What did you think of that, given that you just discussed with the voice actor and you've also discussed it with the writer of the game?
Yeah, I think it was funny because, like, I think that came out like literally on the same day as the podcast. Like, it just happened to create this funny situation where, like, if you go strictly off the game and the conversation with Jeffrey and Paul, like, you know, all of them basically say like, you can't really. It's intentionally not clear cut. Mm-hmm. And everything, and then the Assassin's Creed Tumblr's like, it's clear cut. Yeah. He's bisexual. And Paul in particular was basically like, you know, labels are kind of dumb anyway, and everything's kind of fluid. And, you know, Jeffrey was very much stressing like, you know, maybe this is something Jacob will have to figure out in the future. And so I thought it was kind of weird to me that you know, talking to Jeffrey and talking to Paul, that everybody seemed to want to kind of let the readers, I don't know, leave it ambiguous and kind of let the players have the thought process that kind of results from that, mm-hmm. and kind of view that situation in that way and the questions that it raises. And so I thought it was kind of weird to go from that just to a straight up Jacob is bisexual thing, which I did later confirm was like from the writing team. Like this, like it did come from the writing team. It wasn't just because there was like a little bit of I think confusion initially because there was some random like German Ubisoft employee who was like said something, and that like that was the whole Tumblr thread.
Yeah, I don't quite know much about how Tumblr's formatting works, but basically these like two people were having like a discussion or like an argument about it, and one person had emailed a German Ubisoft worker about it in German, and they said no, he isn't, and then they were having it back and forth, and then the official Tumblr interjected with what sounded quite curt, and basically just said he is bi. That's it. The end. Yeah,
and so I mean, I don't know. I think it's fine that he's bisexual, of course. Like, I just think that if that was going to be the plan all along, to definitively, like, we're going to have a bisexual character or whatever, like that, it seemed really weird to me that it's like, oh, I don't know. Well, to me anyway, it's pretty subtle in the game. And like in the discussions with Jeffrey and everything, it seems like it was meant to be like kind of just like just raising more questions than anything. And I don't know, it kind of reminds me of, I think, like, you know, after Harry Potter came out, it was J.K. Rowling who was like basically, oh, and by the way, Dumbledore's gay, right?
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah, I remember that.
Right? Like, it kind of reminds me of that. And it's like, on one hand, you don't want someone's sexuality to be like the defining characteristic of their character or whatever, of course, right? But on the other hand, it almost seems weird if you write a character that could, like, it feels like they could be, like, their sexuality isn't even really touched on almost. Mm-hmm. And then to be like, oh, yeah, and that character is bisexual. And it almost kind of feels like it cheapens it a little, you know, because it's like, it's really hard. And this is like really kind of like thorny territory a little bit too. I don't want to like, I don't want to give anyone the impression that like, I don't like that he's bisexual or anything. It's just, it's weird. The contrast to me between like how it was treated up until that Tumblr statement, and then just to eventually have it be, you know, like definitive, like oh, and he's bisexual. And I don't know if maybe that was just a result of the thread and needing some clarification, like if that's possible. But But yeah, so I don't know. It's a little bit of a weird situation, but it's canon and cool. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I have no issues with that. It's just that how they did announce it is not how I would have announced it personally.
yeah, it's a little weird. I don't know. And I think if you are gonna make a bisexual assassin, I think it's really an interesting concept, and it's cool to kind of have more diversity in this series. But like I said, I think it leaves me wanting in the sense, in the kind of in a way that Ned left me wanting in Assassin's Creed Syndicate. And I kind of talked about this with Jeffrey, where I almost wanted to see. It's this tug of war between not wanting to make their sexuality or whatever their defining characteristic, but also just not completely ignoring it, especially in a time where such things would not be ignored, right? And so I would have kind of wanted to see a little more, I think, with Jacob, like how his bisexuality is reflected in his interactions with other characters, or maybe just those characters he didn't have any interest in, or maybe he only defines himself as bisexual years afterwards, right? Because Jeffrey was talking about how like he's gonna have to probably do some thinking. So maybe by the time in Jack the Ripper he's bisexual, but he's fully embraced himself as bisexual, like then that identity and everything. But like in Syndicate, he's just starting to learn about himself and everything. So it's just a little confusing, and like it feels a little unsatisfying to me for it just to be labeled like that, like after the facts, in that way, I guess. I don't know.
Shifting gears a little bit.
Yeah.
Will you be getting the recently announced young adult Assassin's Creed novel, Last Descendants?
We'll see. I don't know.
Huh?
I mean, probably. I'll check it out. It's not clear to me if like young adult can encompass like so many things, like you were talking about last episode, I think, with McHeisenbergler, and we'll see how important it is to the overall series, and how I'll probably read some reviews first or whatever. But like I'm much more in the vein of stuff like Underworld and the Forsaken and all that. Like I like those novels. I finally started reading Underworld. I'm like halfway through it.
Okay, I was just about to ask you. How you liking Underworld?
Yeah, Underworld is pretty good so far. I'm liking it a lot. It's very much in the vein of the Unity novelization, which I also the only books I've read so far are Forsaken and the Unity novelization. I try to keep it to the ones that actually have like new info and aren't just novelizations of the game. I haven't read Secret Crusade. That's the other one I need to read. I like it. It's giving some nice backstory to Henry Green. It's cool to see interactions between Arbizmir and Ethan Frye. The one thing that I think it's the only quibble I have with the book right now, and I'm not sure if it'll be resolved by the end, is that I think they I think they overdo it a little bit in making young Henry Green sound like the most amazing assassin that the world has ever seen. Yeah. Like they really they really puff him up. And like I would never ever have guessed that based on Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Like their whole thing with Henry is like he's the world's most skilled like assassin, like pretty much that they have ever seen. He just doesn't quite have the killer instinct, right?
Yeah.
And like that's his flaw. But I don't know, from Syndicate it kind of seemed like he was just kind of like a desk worker that found himself in the field and he's kind of just bumbling around.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of a jarring representation. I don't know if they'll explain that later on. We'll wait and see like when I finish it. But like he's like the character in the movie series that's like, or TV series that always has the desk job, and then like later on they need to like they need to like spice up the series, and so they put him out in the field, and everyone like in Mission Impossible they're like, wait, Benji, you passed the field test? Or like in Archer, like I think it's Pam, right, takes the field test a few seasons in, and she's like, oh yeah, now I'm an agent. That's like Henry to me. Like when he goes on these missions, he's like, yeah. Henry, you're out in the field, like, are you, what, you passed the test? When in reality he's supposed, like, there's a little bit of disconnect there, and I don't know if they'll resolve it or not. That's the only thing that I think has really kind of bothered me. Not too much, because there's always been little discrepancies between portrayals of characters in the novels and the game. Like, I think the Forsaken novel had Connor let out like a cry when he killed Hatham, and we know in the game, like, he just like stabs him silently, kind of, but with like kind of anguish on his face. And I think that looked a lot more realistic. But it, like in the novel, it almost felt like it was like a Darth Vader, like, no, it's like stabbing him in the neck or something, and I'm just like, what? But yeah.
So Last Descendants. So does the synopsis really appeal to you at the moment from what you've read of it?
I think I've only seen, the only thing I've heard from the synopsis is what you guys talked about last week, like about being falsely accused, I think, but he's also like the new kid in high school or something, right? Or something, or is it girl? I don't remember.
Yeah, it's like that.
I don't know. I don't think I'm the target audience for it. I think it's one of those things that's written to a different audience, but it's acceptable, but also written so that if someone like me reads it, it's like you'll still get some lore stuff out of it, maybe. Well, I have absolutely no idea what to expect from it, so I'll just hold off on. I'll probably read it. I'll probably be like, it was okay, but not really for me. I'm guessing that's probably how it'll turn out, but we'll see.
Assassin's Creed Identity was released this week. Have you had a chance to check that out yet?
Well, I mean, I saw the trailer and everything, and I read a little bit about it. I don't. If you mean check it out by play it, then no, because I don't have because I have Android devices. Like,
I'm so
work
sorry.
at Google, and until they decide to release Identity for Android, which I don't think they will.
I thought they announced that they were planning on it.
Were they? Oh, okay.
I thought they announced like a month range.
Oh, interesting. Even still, I don't know. I like, to be totally honest, I look at this game and I'm just like, why does this exist? Like, it's, I guess it's like an opportunity to have, like, I think it's really impressive that it basically looks like AC2 on an iPad. Like, I think that's really cool, but I've always hated those types of games and touch controls, and I get the impression it's not really narratively driven. I don't know, maybe it is, but
yeah,
it's more like just kind of gameplay driven, which is okay, but I would rather play an Assassin's Creed third-person open-world experience like that with a controller and a narrative. Like, I would, not a touchscreen and whatever, but it might have a narrative. That's just my impression from seeing it. I don't know. I look at that and I have no interest in it.
So, Android version coming out spring 2016.
Okay, cool. So maybe I'll check it out eventually. But first impressions from looking at it, it's like touch controls.
I didn't realize that it costs money to buy. Like, they didn't clarify that in trailers anywhere, but it costs $5.
Oh, crazy! I think that's what they charge for Pirates too, right? Though, like, I think
Pirates became free though.
Eventually it became free. So I'm wondering if maybe they'll make this one free eventually. We'll see.
I won't play it till then.
Yeah, it really feels less like it's about something for the fans, like of people who are already fans of the series, and more along the lines of trying to tap into the mobile market and being like, hey, here's this AAA franchise you may have heard of. Like, we spend a lot of marketing money on the regular games. Like, now you can play it on your, like, if you've always been interested in Assassin's Creed, check it out on your iPad. And that's what it feels like.
One thing that's odd is that it's based around the idea of, we saw the image circle around a while ago, but did you hear about the Crows, is their name?
No, I don't think so.
Basically, it's kind of almost a retcon in a way, but basically Cesare employed these assassin-trained Templars who wear like assassin gear, except it's all black, and they're called the Crows. And basically, that's what Identity circles around: is you hunting down the Crows and fighting them and shit.
Oh, that sounds. I don't know. That sounds dumb to me. I'm sorry. It just sounds...
Well, yeah, it sounded dumb to everyone when they released that little screenshot of them a few months ago, and everyone was like, wait, the Crows? What?
I don't know. That sounds. Oh Jesus! I don't know. That just really seems like one of those decisions that's somebody from some studio that has very little experience with the brand is like, oh, this is cool, right? Like, it's basically Dark Assassins.
Mm-hmm.
And like, how do we twist that into the narrative? Whatever. We'll say Cesare wanted some Assassin Templars, and like not really caring if it actually fits in with the broader series and characters and stuff. At least this is how it sounds to me, just based off of this. That sounds silly and not something that Cesare would have done.
I think it's also based off of early drafts of the complete visual history, because I've actually been watching that and reading it, and it's really great. But apparently, really early designs for Ezio made him being a far darker character than Altair was. So they were going to shift from the all-white, eagle-focused Altair to a crow-based design of a dark Ezio. And so this would also be Renaissance Italy. So I wonder if they saw, oh wow, these early concept arts for an Ezio focused around crows. Renaissance Italy, crows, Ezio. What if Ezio fought the crows? I don't know.
Interesting.
Possible.
Well, it's not Ezio that you're playing as, though.
Yeah, you're not playing as Ezio. I think you're playing as a nameless character that you kind of customize.
Yeah. I had heard that, and maybe this is like a while ago, but I thought it was the assassins that Ezio sends out in Brotherhood, basically.
Interesting. I
Kind
haven't
of.
heard that.
Like when you go to the Pigeon Coop and you manage your assassins and you send them out on missions. I had heard at some point, at some time, and it might not be the case in the final game, but like you were playing, the idea was basically that you were playing as those assassins. And I thought that was kind of a cool idea, but then it doesn't really make sense that they're in the same cities as Ezio. Well, I guess Ezio's in Rome in Brotherhood, so maybe it does make sense that they're in Florence and everything, but I don't know. I think that's a cool idea. I don't know, but we'll see. Maybe I have to play it, or I'd be curious to see. I haven't really seen if there's like a Reddit thread talking about people's impressions. There must be. I must have missed it or something.
I don't think many people are getting it. At least not from the hardcore fan base, given that like I'm not paying $5 for this.
Yeah.
I barely play games on my iPhone anyway.
I paid $30 for Chronicles. I feel like $5 for this probably isn't that much to...
That's a fair point.
Well, I mean, this is just from my perspective. I'm not trying to shame anybody on the subreddit, but I'm like, if I'm thinking about it, I'm like, the $5 is probably not the barrier here. It's more that it doesn't look interesting to me. Like, maybe the touch controls are better than what I think, but I have a really bad aversion to anything using touch controls for that type of game that looks like it's supposed to be played on a console. It's like, do something like mobile games are best when they're designed from the ground up. For the thing, like, The Room is often cited as, a really good game that was built with mobile in mind from the beginning. And this feels a little too much like we're going to shoehorn the console Assassin's Creed experience into a mobile experience. And I'm kind of like, I don't have high hopes for stuff like that.
Will you be playing the last Maharaja ACS DLC missions on stream?
Oh, absolutely. It'll be, I don't think I'll do it on launch day, whenever that is. And I think it's kind of like, from what I understand, I have trouble catching the Assassin's Creed live streams when they happen from the main channel, because they always happen while I'm at work. But they streamed it, but I don't think they announced a release date, did they? I
think that there are rumors floating around that the release date is March 1st, which is Tuesday, I think.
Yeah, this coming Tuesday.
But I don't think they released it from what I heard. Announced the release date.
Oh, that's weird. You would think that would be the perfect time to announce a release date, but they must not be able to, or something. Maybe that's their way of subtly like telling the community, "Hey, guess we can't tell you exactly when this is coming out, but guess what? We're playing it right now, and it's probably soon." I don't think I'll be playing it on release day, but I'll play it on my Saturday Assassin's Creed live stream time slot. I'll throw it in there.
Yeah. So yeah, the only information I can find that's like official is March 2016.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be interested to see how that comes out. I mean, I get the impression, I think I saw this on the subreddit where somebody was like, it'll probably be just like kind of disappointing, like all Ubisoft medium-sized AC DLCs or whatever. Kind of like along the lines of Darwin's Dickens Conspiracy, where it's kind of bare bones stuff. We'll see.
Don't even talk to me about Darwin Dickens. Jesus. Bare bones, just putting it lightly. But I actually liked Doolip Singh's inclusion in the main game, and I liked his character, so I'm not feeling bad about it.
They did bring up like that whole like side. I don't know if it's like a side plot, but like that whole side discussion about like his whole plight. Was really cool. I really enjoyed that. So I don't think it'll be as bare bones as Darwin and Dickens Conspiracy. I'm hoping that it's a good follow up to that conversation, which is I think what they were going for. And yeah, I'm excited to try it. I don't have super high expectations, but
yeah, I hear it's supposed to be 10 missions as opposed to the Darwin Dickens 3. So
yeah,
that's at least better already.
And that's good. They're selling it for $7. Like that would suck if it was just 3 missions.
Oh yeah. Now, final thing I just want to talk about.
Yeah.
Gabriel Graziani, Assassin's Creed senior community developer, has announced that he is leaving the Assassin's Creed brand. He will continue to work at Ubisoft Montreal on a different brand, but he won't be working with Assassin's Creed directly anymore. Lemon, did you hear about this? I assume you did.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's super sad. I'm really sad to see Gabe go.
Yeah.
Gabe's been a huge reason of why I've been able to do a lot of cool videos on my channel that people like a lot of the podcasts, and he's been pretty instrumental along with Andy too, like in getting me to E3 all these years and getting interviews with people. I'm happy for Gabe because I think 5 years, it's been about 5 years, probably like 5.5 years on the same brand, I think is very rare and probably really tiring after a while. And so I'm happy for him to move on to a different franchise.
Did you end up watching that segment of the live stream on the archive?
No, I didn't. I should go back and check it out. But I heard they played the Tomahawk, inflatable Tomahawk battle that we did at PAX Prime, I believe, in 2012.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. Yeah. I loved that. I was in that Tomahawk battle, and it was a lot of fun.
You looked a lot younger as well.
Oh, yeah. I was younger.
Well, I know that, given that it was a few years ago.
Well, yeah, I think, shorter hair is younger. I hadn't developed my Alex Mancio flowing locks yet.
Of course.
I was Alex Mancio circa 2011, not Alex Mancio circa 2015 at that point.
Yeah, Gabe's a great guy. He's also being moved to an unannounced franchise as well. So obviously they need some of his amazing experience.
Yeah. He wouldn't tell me what it was, and it makes me think that it's that, like that earnings call or whatever, or investors call where Yves Guillemot was talking about, like in the next fiscal year we have a new installment of Watch Dogs, and then one of the things he said was like, we also have a new AAA brand with a lot of potential, or something along those lines, and like it makes me think that he's probably going to kick that off, but I have absolutely no idea. But
well, they couldn't get anyone better for the job.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited to hopefully I'll be working with him if the new project looks good, and I'm sure I'll be in touch with him, but I'll definitely miss him as kind of an advocate for the AC community and liaison between them and the devs, and he was just really great comm dev. Couldn't ask for a better one.
Yeah. I wish the absolute best of luck to Gabe and all of his future endeavors. He's a great guy. I really can't thank him enough for everything that he's done for the community and for me as an individual. And it was amazing getting to eat dinner with him and meet him in Montreal a few months back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'd definitely be missed.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to mention on the podcast, Loomer?
Let's see. Not really. I'm also live streaming Alien Isolation, and I love it.
Ah, yes.
Wonderful atmosphere. We don't have to spend a lot of time talking about it. I just want to note that like the atmosphere in that game is so top notch. I love that game so much.
What was the last horror game you played? Was it Outlast?
Probably Outlast, yeah. That was like a while ago.
And there was about a year between playthroughs of that.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was legendary. That was actually some of the first streams of yours that I watched. Were
oh, good.
the Outlast ones, and so I'm actually gonna, when you get a bit further into Alien, it gets getting more scary. I'm gonna try and tune in and try not to freak you out too much.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Yeah, and Outlast was, I thought, a good choice to. That was one of the first. I think it was the first game I ever tried to live stream, like a playthrough of a game, and I thought it would be appropriate because I wanted to play it, but I wanted some people there with me to like hold me when I got scared. But it was also nice because, like, I was saying this the other day on the Alien live stream too. But like the developer of Outlast, Red Barrels, has a few key people that worked on Assassin's Creed. Like they're, the original Assassin's Creed team is kind of scattered. Like some of them are still at UB Montreal, some of them have gone to Patrice's new company, Panache, and then a few of them joined up with a bunch of other devs. Well, not a bunch of a few other devs at Red Barrels and made Outlast. And they know what they're doing. It's a really good game, and I still need to play the Whistleblower DLC, and then I'm going to be excited to go through Outlast 2 later this year. I'm excited for it.
You mentioned Panache. Thing I found this week. Panache is an actual word, and it means something. Do you realize?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I've heard of it before. It's kind of like an old-timey word almost a little bit, or I don't know if it's old-timey so much as rarely used, but it's kind of like an artsy word, I think.
I did not realize this, and I kind of love it a lot more right now because of that.
Yeah, I think it's a great name for Patrice's company.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what. I was mentioned this during the Far Cry Primal stream. I'm curious what Patrice thinks of it, because like when he was talking about Ancestors, when he first revealed it, like this whole kind of like, for lack of a better word, like primal environment, and his takes place even before Far Cry Primal, at least initially, was a little more unique, and now it's kind of not. And I'm wondering what he thinks about that, especially since he was like, oh, our game will have killing in it, but it's not going to be the focus of it. Whereas Far Cry Primal, he was talking about how people back then needed to work together to survive. And Far Cry Primal, you kind of get that, but there's still very much like everybody wants to kill everybody. Like all these tribes hate each other apparently and just want to kill each other. And it's a little bit more exaggerated take on that. So I'd be curious to see like if the environment has changed for Ancestors a little bit by the time it has something playable. Like it's still like more than a year out from being playable, I think, to the general public is what the time frame he gave me at E3. So like, I don't know. It's I think there was like another game. Oh, I think I'm thinking of maybe Horizon Zero Dawn. It seemed like there were a couple games that have been announced recently that kind of have a more primal, like prehistoric feel to them. And I'm wondering how that affects Ancestors. Sorry, it was just a tangent, but yeah.
That's what this podcast is all about.
Okay,
tangents.
good.
All right, Looms, thanks for sitting down and talking with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where can everyone, in case anyone hasn't gotten the message by now, where can everyone find your stuff?
Yeah. All of my Assassin's Creed content is on youtube.com/Loomer. I'm currently working on a special AC4 video that I'm hoping to have out for Edward's birthday in like a couple weeks. We will see. I've done some test bits of it, and I think it's going to be cool. And so if the idea works out, I think it'll be a cool video. And if it doesn't work out, I'll kill the project and you'll never hear of it again. But yeah, so that's where I live stream. That's where I put up my other videos, like the one that's coming up for AC4, and hopefully. And that's youtube.com/Loomer. And then I'm on Twitter and Facebook at Loomer979.
This has been Animus Island. I am Aftermath. That has been Loomer. And I will see you next week.